using the equipment in a way that, I mean, basically he needs more Hendrick guys working on that car instead of DEI guys working on Hendrick cars. That's why I don't think it was working. I could be wrong.
That honestly wasn't a shot at you. That was just a good example of, you said.
I know. You hate him. You think he's terrible. You think he's the worst driver ever.
No, I.
It's all right. It's all right.
No, I think Andy Houston is the worst driver ever.
Yeah, Kyle will be so proud of you when he hears this. All right, Chris, what's your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment is RCR, the entire organization. Because now here's an example. I thought about Junior, but I didn't really expect a ton. Once again, to the extent of the disappointment, probably more than I thought. But I didn't expect a ton. I didn't really.
I expected him to be in chase contention.
Yeah,
Did I expect him to be like a top 5 driver? I
Exactly.
didn't. Honestly, I didn't expect it.
Exactly. I think with some other different scenarios, once again, I didn't expect much. However, RCR, I did expect. Quite honestly, I expected 3 of them to be at least in chase contention. 2 of them in the chase. And it's just like, I mean, I didn't expect anything out of the 00 or the 07. But I think that they're, as an organization, my biggest disappointment.
Well, look at this. Kevin Harvick is the lowest RCR driver. He is 25th in points. Then Casey Mears is 22nd. Burton is 17th. And Clint Boyer is 15th. And Clint Boyer's got the whole new team around him, too.
And Boyer, we on the show, if we went back and played it.
I thought he was doing great in March.
He was up in the top 5 in points.
I thought he was doing a great job with that crew, and it's just fallen apart. But the whole organization's taking a step back, and that's not one person's fault. I mean, I wouldn't even. Casey Mears is 22nd in points. Do I think he'd be better? Not necessarily, but I don't really blame him for it because RCR's been just as an organization just doesn't have it right now.
It'd be different if the 3 of them were in the top 10 and he was 22nd.
It would be. That being said, I mean, I always kind of viewed him as a stopgap for whatever reason. I don't know to who in the 07, but when they signed him, I was just thinking he's not going to be in that car for long. Yeah, and I still don't think so.
Swimming in a giant pool of mediocrity, and that's not RCR.
Yeah, and actually, I agree with you on that. I think Richard Childress Racing is the biggest disappointment, just because I mean, your head guy Harvick, that's your number 1 driver. Well, not
your quote flagship driver.
Your flagship driver. The face of your team is 25th in points. Something's wrong. Something's way wrong. And I think Harvick's a decent enough driver in the right equipment, and we talked about it on Friday. Potential him, Stewart-Haas Racing. Though, and one thing I'd argue about this too is that we don't know how long Stewart-Haas Racing will be a good team. This might just be a flash in the pan for 1 year. But, if he wants out now because they're running so poorly. And
which is actually quite surprising because I always pictured him as one of those, I'm going to be with one team for, maybe not forever, but for a long time.
I'm not sure that there's anybody left who will be with one team forever just because there's been so much turnover the last few years. So many names that you would say never have moved on,
except Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon. I don't think they'll ever. Well,
I don't think so. Actually, we were talking about this after you left Saturday night. I think in the event that Gordon retires at the end of this year, which is a slight possibility, but in the event that it would happen, I think he'll be back. And let's say 2 years down the road, Hendrick's full. Can he drive for Hendrick? He might have to find something else.
So you think he's going to do that whole I want to come back after missing it for a year thing?
If he were to retire right now, I think. I think the idea of him retiring right now is almost asinine because he's so young still. It's like you're 37. You leave right now, you're going to hate yourself because you're going to think of all those trophies you don't have now because...
Well, but if he leaves, I mean, the whole reason it's even talked about is because of his back.
Yeah, well, imagine 2 years down the road. Hey, my back's feeling pretty good. I haven't raced in a while. Man, I'm only 40. I can race for 10 more years. I mean, look at all these other guys in other sports that have come back. I mean, Bill Elliott's still driving. The guy, I mean...
I just don't.
You just don't want him to do
that.
No,
not even the thing about going to another team. I just don't see him being that. He just seems like a different... I just don't see him doing that.
I see any athlete doing that. Athletes are egotistical, and they want the glory, and they want the competition. And let's face it, some of these guys just don't know how to live without it. Darrell Waltrip couldn't. That's why he's held on for too long. Richard Petty couldn't. Dale Earnhardt couldn't. That's why he raced till he died, pretty much. I mean, not that he was like 80 in the car, but you understand what I mean. There's a guy that's 83 that ran a race in the Camping World East Series or something like that this weekend. I mean, you may step out of the car for now, but you're not out of the car forever. And that's true for just about anybody in sports or anybody in auto racing.
Yeah.
So anyway, to you, Chris, what was the best race of the season?
Well, this is probably gonna shock you, considering the finish, but just a race that sticks out in my mind that I remember for the whole race minus the finish, is New Hampshire. I loved New Hampshire. I thought that was a fantastic race. Obviously, minus the finish, but that's because the problem was. Oh, I forgot to say, and I was going to say this before the show. I picked New Hampshire minus because I, in my mind, excluded the restrictor plates. I took them out.
I did too.
I took them out.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, otherwise, I mean, obviously Talladega was probably the most exciting. But
so I'm glad that we were on the same.
It.
We were on the same page.
Yeah,
here.
I didn't count it.
I took out the 3 restrictor plates, and I thought New Hampshire was my best.
Right. I'm going to surprise you. I think with this, I thought the Toyota Save Mart 350 at Infineon was the best race of the season.
I almost picked that.
I remember that race being.
I almost picked Infineon.
That is by far the best road course race I've ever seen, and it was a fantastic race to watch. It was very close. It was very exciting. And it had something that no other race had, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was just an exciting race.
I almost picked that. That's nuts. That is so funny that you picked that. It was a very good race. It would have been close for me.
All right. What was the worst race for you?
Michigan.
It was for me too. I was there, but
Are you joking?
No.
I was convinced that you were not going to pick that.
It was a terrible race. I understand that. Now, did I have fun? Of course I did. I was there. There's no way I'm going to be bored at the racetrack. But I understand that it was a boring race. Here's the thing. It was actually down to Michigan and Chicagoland for me. And the difference being is that Michigan had the final 5 laps to be exciting, and Chicagoland had the final 25 laps to be exciting. That was the big difference. So there was more interesting stuff going on at the end of Chicago than there was at Michigan. Other way, they were both the 2 of the worst races I had ever seen as far as general on-the-track racing. That being said, I mean, at Michigan, I had a blast, and I had lots of time enjoying watching it there.
I would say virtually the identical thing for Chicagoland. For me, actually, I guess the one difference is for me, Chicagoland wasn't even in the running for worst race to me. But I guess it's because, it's just part of that you were, that's why I'm shocked that you picked that.
I can pull back and be objective, believe it or not. And objectively speaking, Michigan was the worst race of the season. Texas might have been up there too. Texas was a fairly poor race.
Got no hope for Michigan, and you knew that though.
I think Michigan's a great racetrack. I think
there's been too many boring races there.
I think this is a crappy car, and it's not good for that style of track because it is far too easy to get in. It's all about clean air. Any track bigger than a mile long, except for maybe Darlington, it's just too fat. It's too big and too fast and too air dependent, and this car sucks on those tracks. And the old cars, the track racing was fantastic there.
I never thought that. I think there's only 1 or 2 races. I think the spring 2001 Michigan race is the one I remember the most. The rest are just kind of like, blah.
You just don't like multi-groove 3-4 wide racing.
I just think it's boring.
Yeah.
They never
you
race.
think multi-groove racing is boring.
Out. There's one caution, one car hits it, the other ones don't. It's just boring.
Cautions don't make a difference to me.
They give cars more options to fix to get back to the leader.
Cautions are basically a byproduct of wrecks. I'd rather see racing. And I don't like throwing debris cautions to bunch them up. Let them race. And I think
that was the other thing I was going to say about this year, the emergence of the mysterious caution.
They've been around for a while now. It's just they're getting
way
more
more prevalent, yeah.
Well, now you're looking for it. So I think that's the difference. All right, Chris, last thing we do before we got to do a quick
chase.
Before we do the review, we're going to do the thing is sum up the first half of the season in one phrase.
I'm going to say, man, I had it and then I forgot it.
You didn't write it down?
No, I didn't. I should have.
Oh, why not? I wrote it down.
I don't know. I should have. You go first.
My phrase was Stewart rules despite crappy racing. Because I think the racing this year has been terrible. God awful. And I think that's why Infineon was the best race for me. Because it was a really good race. But, I mean, really, the road course should not have been the great race. There should have been races at Dover, Michigan, Richmond, Bristol. Even for me, like I love Michigan. Michigan should have been a great race. Chicagoland's been a good race in the past, in my opinion. And these all disappointed. And I think it's because the car.
See, it's all perspective, and that's so amazing. Because I remember what I was going to say. I don't remember the exact words, but I was going to say something along the lines of what I said earlier about like a reinvigorating resurgence for me. I think it's been fantastic this year, but I guess it's all perspective.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said I've been watching the last few years. I would say, I won't even go back to like 04. The race in 2004 was fantastic. I thought that season was a great season. Or 03 and all that. I think right now, they've got to find a way to make it so that the leader does not pull away in clean air.
I agree.
That's the big thing is that the leader whoever gets out front, You saw it in Chicagoland. Once somebody got in front of Mark Martin, he couldn't do anything with them. But once he